Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before I begin, I want to thank my sponsors. I want to thank Sergio and Jake. Thank you guys for sponsoring the podcast. I really appreciate it. And just a reminder, guys, that if you want to become a sponsor of the podcast, make sure to check the link in the description of the podcast of this episode. It's on all the episodes. There's a link there that you can go out there and sponsor the podcast. Even $1 a month helps a lot. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Today's guest, I'm really excited because, it's an honor because he's, I guess, one of the biggest Hispanic cartoonists, art instructors, producers, co-founder of the Latino Comic Expo. Today's guest is Mr. Javier Hernandez. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jose. It's looking forward to hitting Calexico next week.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, which if you don't know, then you're probably living under a rock. But next weekend on the 15th is the third annual Imperial Valley Comic Con. So shout out to Ruben Najera for, he's the guy that has been putting this on for the past couple of years. You can also find him at MetaHumans in El Centro. So shout out to Ruben Najera. I always like to start my podcast with my guests telling us a little bit about themselves. Can you tell us a little bit of you growing up and how you got into comics and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, like the movie says, the song says, I was born in East LA, and we moved over to this town called Whittier nearby years ago. But my parents are immigrants. Oh, and my mom was from Mexico. My dad was born in Redlands, and as a child, he moved down to Mexicali, actually, not far from where you guys are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we pretty much almost just say, we're son of immigrants because he pretty much raised most of his childhood and young adulthood there in Mexico. That's where he met my mom. They got married, and then they moved to East LA where my dad had his family. So, I got that background in my family where like half the family from my mom's side is, from Mexico, Guadalajara, Sinaloa. And then the other half, my dad's side is like puro East LA. So I got that it's a real Mexican-American mishmash. But, me and my siblings, we grew up pretty much, all American kids in the fact that, we're watching American TV and, going to schools here and everything. So it's it was a good upbringing as far as like having that Mexican cultural background, but also like for me growing up in the 70s, this wonderful age of, comic books, 25-cent comics at the local 7-Eleven, all the TV you could watch on your days off from school or home from school. I mean, everything from the old Batman TV show, the old Spider-Man cartoon, Speed Racer, and then the new stuff at the time, Incredible Hulk on TV, Bionic Man, all that stuff. So, all that stuff, like any artist, all that stuff is going to inform you later as an artist. And definitely, I guess we'll talk about that later, but a lot of that stuff definitely goes in my my big stew, my big menudo of cultural.
Yeah. So you say you grew up watching a lot of Spider-Man, Bionic Man, all this, but was there any Hispanic TV that you watched that kind of like has bled into your art or whatever, everything that you're doing today?
Yeah. Well, as far as the programs, so as a kid, we'd sit there with the parents and watch Chapulín Colorado and Siempre en Domingo, all those shows, some telenovelas once in a while. And, I would sit there and watch it and enjoy it, whatever. But it was really the Lucha Libre on here in LA at the LA market on Channel 34, which I think is still a Spanish network, a Mexican network. They used to have the local wrestling show from the Olympic Auditorium downtown Los Angeles. So I used to watch on Wednesday night. You'd watch the wrestling show in Spanish with the Spanish announcers. And then on Saturday from the same Olympic Auditorium, you'd have the American announcers calling the matches. So it was pretty cool. So that's where I found out about this man called Mil Máscaras. What do they call him? The Holy Trinity, right? It's Máscaras, El Santo, and Blue Demon. But Mascaras came on the radar because he was always, he'd wrestle at the Olympic Auditorium. So I don't remember if I saw him in person, but I remember seeing him on TV, and then of course the old wrestling magazines. So that's why I started learning about, the masked Mexican wrestler. Like, wow, they walk around in Mexico with the mask all the time. There's this, I still have it in my head, is this famous picture of Mil Mascaras. I guess he's in Japan, and it's from the side of him. But he's wearing just a regular T-shirt with the collar. He's got his mask, and he's in a Japanese noodle shop, and he's just taking a spoonful of noodles, and you can see him looking at the camera guy on, taking his picture.
Yeah,
it's wow, it's a superhero. Mexico has real superheroes, unlike here, we only have them on TV shows. There, they walk around with their mask and they fight crime, and they wrestle and fight. If you're Santo, they fight demons and vampire women and all that cool stuff.
You know what? I mean, I do remember growing up watching, El Santos contra las momias de Guanajuato or whatnot, but I never saw it as, real live action heroes, and it's true. I mean, you would see them on TV fighting, and then you would see them fighting, monsters, and then you could see them walking out in the streets with their mask. I mean, it's the first time that it's blowing my mind. Wow, it's true. It's a good way to see the, that crossover from the TV to real life. It was it's crazy. I mean,
especially if you're reading comic books as a kid and you're okay, Peter Parker and all that stuff. But in Mexico, they're real.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's first time. Yeah, it's crazy. Never thought about it. And I was a big Lucha Libre fan. As a kid, I grew up. I was born in LA. Then we came to Calexico when I was around 8. So from that time on, I was watching, Mexican TV because, we have border right next to. So we would pick up more. If you didn't have cable, you would pick up more Mexican channels than you would, unless you had a really good antenna, you would pick up, most of them. So Saturday mornings was or I can't remember, Saturday or Sunday mornings, it was Lucha Libre. And I remember going to Mexicali and buying posters, and I had a bunch of posters from these luchadores, and it never, I never saw it that way. Maybe because I never saw one in person.
Right.
But maybe if I would have seen one, I would have been oh shit, it's an actual live action, hero, here in the flesh. But yeah, it's a good, it's a good way to see it. So what was, from the comics you watch and the TV you watch, what was one of your favorite superheroes growing up?
Well, as a kid, definitely Spider-Man. Because as a kid, my brother had given me his collection of comics, and he had some reprints from 1970, 71, where Marvel would reprint older issues. So that's where I found out about these, the early comics from Stan Lee and artist Steve Ditko. And it's a Spider-Man character that I love, but it's really, I think it's because that interpretation from that particular artist, Steve Ditko, just the way he drew him and the way he told the stories, with his visual storytelling and such. But, I liked all the comics as a kid. Iron Man, Daredevil, Batman, Thor. And then, a lot of other shows and stuff. And then, as you get older, it's what am I going to do in life? So I'd always wanted to do comics, or I had thought of it for, on and off for years. But, back then, maybe to say the 80s, there was not any really comic book schools or there wasn't comic book courses in college like there is now.
Yeah.
There was one school back east, the Joe Kubert School of Art, comic book art. But, from a kid in Whittier, it's New York, New Jersey. That's like going to Paris. I'm never going to get there.
Yeah.
So I didn't really pursue the comics because I didn't really have any reference point as far as education of it, other than self-education. But it just didn't seem like a likely thing for me, at least. But by the time the 90s came around, and at this point you're starting to push 30, it's okay, I got a good job. I'm an art director at a graphic design screen printing company, but the money's good. You got health insurance, which is important, but you're not doing what you really, really want to, what you remember as a kid. So in 1998, I ended up publishing my first issue of El Muerto.
Mm-hmm. Before we get into El Muerto, there's a couple of things that I want to.
Sure.
Let me see. Let's just go into El Muerto. Tell us a little bit about El Muerto. Who is El Muerto, and how did it come about?
Yeah. So, by the mid 90s, it's like, okay, I got to do something with the comic. I got to make my own comic, because at this point the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic was like a legend, right? Like these two guys working in their studio in their living room made this comic, and it becomes this huge media empire. Toys, cartoons, movies, video games, even today. But I wasn't looking for that. It's not like, I want to create my own media empire, but like, I want to make my own comic. And guys like Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, and a lot of other people, tons of people, they showed that you can make your own comics for yourself, or, own it, basically. Because there's working at a comic company, like everybody I'm sure is aware of. They're working on Batman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, whatever. Or there's working on your own property that you own and you control. And a lot of struggles with that, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to just create my own characters and own them. And at the same time, I had wanted to do a Latino character, because back in '98, there was already some people who had done work in comics, self-publishing their own Latino characters, like Love and Rockets, the Hernandez brothers. No relation to me, Jaime and Beto. They had done their Love and Rockets comics featuring their cast of Latino characters. There was other sporadic ones. There was one in the 70s called El Relámpago by Judge Margarita Garza. I hope I got his name right. Judge Garza, I think. He had done I think it's credited as the first self-published Mexican superhero comic by a Mexican American. This was in the, I think, early mid 70s. So anyway, so by the time the 90s came around, there was other people already doing comics like this, friends of mine, people I had met at conventions. So I thought, okay, let me make up my own character, self-publish it, and just give this comics thing a go. So El Muerto, it's this young man. His name's Diego de la Muerte. He's born on Day of the Dead, coincidentally. I know, a guy called Diego de la Muerte born on Day of the Dead. Who would have guessed? On his 21st birthday, he gets killed in a car accident, and then he's subsequently resurrected by the Aztec god of death and the god of destiny, Mictlantecutli and Tezcatlipoca. So, coming up with the idea, I knew I'd wanted to do something with like Aztec mythology, which you very hardly ever saw in the media back in the 90s. And then I wanted to do something with the Day of the Dead folklore, which again, back in the 90s, you didn't see too much of that in the media. It was already an institution throughout the, Mexican-American communities in the Southwest and, of course, in Mexico. But this is a good 20 years before our beloved movie Coco or Book of Life and all those great things. So that's basically what the story is and kind of why I wanted to put that out there in the world.
So is it important for you to show, like in your art and in your stories, like the Mexican background and your culture and all this mythology? Is it important for you to make it a focal point when you write a story or make a comic or a superhero?
Yeah, especially for my first one, because like I told you, we talked about, I grew up loving all that other stuff that I watched as a kid. Batman and, Iron Man, Spider-Man. But at one point, you're going through your 20s and 30s, you just start, at least I was, you're getting this sense of your own identity and, how you grew up. Like, hey, I grew up in a house speaking Spanish, watching Spanish programming, Spanish music all the time, along with my American pop culture. But I didn't see that reflected in the comics. So I figured, okay, well, I experienced the Mexican-American culture. I may as well put that in a comic because I'm doing my own thing, right? I don't really have to answer to somebody. I don't have to ask an editor, hey, is this marketable? I didn't really care or know any better if it was marketable. I just looked at it like, I just got to get that out there. So, and that's 22 years ago. And I'm still doing Muerto comics. I've done other characters. But yeah, it's always important for me to try to make him Latino, Mexican American. I've done other type of characters as well. But yeah, at this point, it's just something I'm going to continue doing. And, it's so nice that nowadays, today, is there's so many more Latino Americans doing their own, culturally specific comics of whatever it could be. It could be biographical, historical, could be superhero fantasy, whatever. But you look at today's younger creators are definitely interested in, expressing a part of their culture, whether they're from the Caribbean, South America, Latin America, where Afro, Latin, whatever.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good chorus of voices.
Do you consider yourself a Chicano?
You know what? I got asked that on another podcast or interview one time, and I had to tell the guy, like, respectfully, like, I don't really call myself that, only because I have respect for that word. And at least the way I grew up, Chicano always seemed to be like people very active politically and sociologically, so I figured, I don't really go out and do that. I do it more from a creative aspect. So, I mean, if people identify me as Chicano, I don't sit there and say, no. But I myself don't, just again, out of respect for the people who did all that marching, all that, seriously trying to make political and social justice changes. So, but, Latino, Mexican American, I've been called in another interview. I love this guy. He called me, the All-American Mexican. I go, that's interesting. Interesting little tagline.
Yeah, but it's a good one, because I've interviewed in the past year. I interviewed a couple people that are in the movement and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and I guess just trying to, like, myself sometimes, like, I guess, like, you've been saying that when you reach a point in your life when you're like trying to see what you are, what you represent, and I guess I'm in that middle, like you, because of respect, I don't really consider myself that, because I don't I'm not in that movement, but I respect them for doing what they're doing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good way to put it. But yeah, I just wanted to get your point of view on that, because it's I guess it's I've seen it more like in when I go on Instagram and I see people doing art and stuff like that. I see a lot of people who are trying to express themselves, their Latino roots, their Chicano roots and stuff like that through the arts.
Right.
So yeah, I just wanted to see, because since you do put our Mexican culture in your comics, I wanted to see what your take was on that respect.
Some people looking at my work, I'm sure, I think I know they have. Somebody just, he's a Chicano artist, he's doing Chicano work. But like I said, if that's how they interpret, that's fine. But I myself don't use it. But yeah, a lot, like you say, I think a lot of more, and it's always younger people. They're trying to reclaim that, which is great, So I'm just exploring my roots, I guess, to different avenues, more like the entertainment avenue, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Although I like to think the things I put out, there's a lot of things in those stories where, I'm not just trying to do mindless, like a superhero thing, we're just fighting bad guys and like that. There's nothing else to it. I try to give my characters a lot of real, like those old Spider-Man comics, real issues or to deal with, like problems, relationship problems and things like that. Wrestling with different things of identity and religion, fatalism, stuff like that. But at the same time, because it is comics and because of the comics I loved as a kid, you want to throw in a lot of interesting visuals, like, really neat character designs, really interesting scenarios, and, really push it and kind of just try to go all out when you can visually.
Yeah. And what better way to show, the Mexican culture than through a comic book. I mean, they did it with Coco and, Book of Life, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit of what Los Comics?
Great visual.
Can you tell us a little bit about what Los Comics is?
Yeah, Los Comics. It's my imprint, my comic book publishing company. People think it's like a giant corporation. Why you got your own company? But it's, I publish under the name Los Comics. That's the brand name. That's my Marvel brand. That's my Apple. Los Comics. I came up with that name again when I did the first issue, 98, maybe a year after. I wanted a name kind of sounded something Latino about it. And I went through all these different ones, and then I just thought, well, comics. Okay, comics, COMEX.
Mm-hmm.
Put the Mex in comics.
Yeah, it's like Calexico is because Cal from California and Mexico from Mexico.
No, exactly. That's what I took it from. It was inspired by Calexico and just that mishmash.
Is there any Mexican like folklore story, like I don't know, like La Llorona or any other stories that you would like to incorporate into one of your stories? Or
well, so the current comic I'm working on, Casa del Diablo. This is my rough draft. Maybe we can talk about that in a sec. But this is the second graphic novel where El Muerto meets a Llorona character. But I didn't want to just use La Llorona, so I made up my own character, La Doña Macaria La Dolente. But yeah, she kills children, and she's a terrible, frightening specter. Oops, hang on. I'm gonna have to plug in my. We're still on, right? I'm still on.
Yeah.
I gotta put some battery juice in that phone, but I can do that while we're talking. So, yeah, the next book definitely touching upon the Llorona saga, and hang on, I don't give the viewers vertigo by moving the thing too much. And okay, we're good. So yeah, I'm working on that one, and then like I said in the first issue, the origin story, I just wanted to play with Aztec mythology, so bringing in like these gods. The god of death, the god of destiny, and I'll be bringing in more gods in the other stories. Kind of like what they did with the Thor comic at Marvel in the old days, bringing in the Norse gods, like their versions of it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I do with my stories. I kind of do a little research on the Aztec gods, but at the same time, it's like, well, I don't want to do like, I don't know what's the word. I'm not doing a biography on the gods, where I got to exactly follow what's gone on before, and then even then there's interpretations. But so I kind of base it on that, and I kind of recreate it for what I need for my story, but try to keep elements of the original god, the aspects of that god, and then come out with a whole new thing that you created on your own. So it's my version of the god of death, my version of the god of beauty or whatever.
So when can people see the second volume of El Muerto?
Yeah, so I'm working on that. I'll have a preview of it, which is like the first 30 pages of the story, in a couple of months at a show I'm going to announce later. And it should be out by the end of the year, the graphic novel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's like 120 pages, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How long does it take you normally to go from like writing the story to... Do you do all the artwork on the book? Like, for example, on the first one, did you do all the artwork?
Yeah. On all my stories, except maybe once or twice or three times I work with other people on different things. But yeah, I write and draw everything. Everything you see in one of my comics it's all me. The writing, the penciling, the inking.
Oh wow!
So the way I work, see how good this looks on film without showing too many. So it's like on 120 pages. This is like when I actually start drawing the comic.
Oh, okay.
In rough draft form, so it's kind of sloppy. Mm-hmm. It's actually really sloppy, but that's all right. And then so I'll draw the all 120 pages, whatever. Oh, wow. And then I'll edit it like an editor. Mm-hmm. Like I'll throw out some pages, or I'll redraw this page, or I'll move some pages, at the front and whatever. Editing. That's why they're all. If you look at them really close, these things are all they're all messy. They got chorizo stains on it. They're rewritten. They're scribbled. But that's your working draft, so you got to be messy with it,
Yeah.
You can't be precious with much of your art. You just got to get it out there. So it could take a while. I mean, we're talking graphic novel, where it's like 120, 130, 40 pages. Mm-hmm. So at least a year. At least for me, it does.
Yeah.
And then it also do other things I teach, and also you got to keep earning money while you're doing that.
Yeah. So what can people expect to see at your booth when you come down to the Imperial Valley Comic Con?
Oh, yes. So I'll have my graphic novel, the first one, which I was hoping I had a copy here, but I do a lot of stickers, buttons. I do prints, large 11 by 17 prints of the El Muerto characters. And I'm gonna try to bring some of these.
Oh, dude.
They're getting harder to find every day. The DVD, the movie based on the comic, which I'm sure we can talk about that later whenever you want. But so yeah, I'll be there at the convention. I'm doing a workshop, kids comic workshop where I do a lesson plan. Kids make their own comic, and I'm going to be on a panel. I forgot what it's called, Latinx and Hispanic superheroes, I think. So it would be a panel, me and a couple other creators. We're going to be talking about kind of what you're asking me, about making Latino-themed characters and stories and such.
Mm-hmm. You're also a teacher. Where do you teach, and what ages, or what is it?
Yeah, so I've been teaching. I teach comic book classes. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. You thought I was going to say cooking classes or something, but no. Everything I do is comics, one way or the other. I teach comic book classes here in throughout Los Angeles County or wherever they have me. I teach at libraries, museums. I also work for schools. As an independent contractor, I don't. I'm not there at the school every day.
Mm-hmm.
Just come in like for their after school programming. But yeah, I love teaching comics, especially to kids, because with the kids, it's like an easier thing. You're just showing them the fundamentals, and then they just kind of attack it. It's because I think my process is so like the way I make the comics, and I don't mind sharing it with anybody, but I think it's just so individual to me. I don't know if I could teach it to like an adult, because I'd rather that adult, that college age person, whatever. I'd rather they make the comic the way they're going to make their comic.
Yeah.
So with the kids, I don't get all the detail in my process. I just kind of show them fundamentals and we get right to it. But I worked with older students, college and up. But I don't know, some weird thing about me I'd rather just keep it really simple and let the student, the young kids, do that. Just get into it rather than me trying to explain all my theories on what. Because I don't think I should be telling you, well, here's the way you're supposed to lay out the story. Here's the way that so.
Yeah, because even like the way I would record a podcast is my way, and somebody else might think they have a better way to do it, but it's their way, just their way to do it, right?
Right.
Do you think that do you do any of your art like digitally, or is it all on pencil and paper?
So yeah, drawing wise, it's all pencil, paper, and ink. But then I scan it, and then I love coloring on the computer. So most of my color work is done on the computer. Although I do like coloring with markers, sometimes color markers. But you can tell when I do a marker drawing versus a digitally colored piece. So I'd say it's about, I don't know if it's 50-50, but yeah, I work both. Every project is done. Half of it's done in the real world, drawing and writing and coloring. Drawing by hand, and then I digitally color, and I letter digitally, and of course I have to put the book together digitally. So
yeah, because
I haven't got 100% digital, but I'm not against digital. But so digital is definitely very important to the process, and I wouldn't be able to do my comics probably without the digital stuff we do through computers.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the movie, the DVD you showed us? I know Wilmer Valderrama was the star of El Muerto.
Yeah, so this is a film that was made in, we filmed it in 2005, and then by the time it got finished and everything, it was 2007. But I had done an interview at San Diego Comic-Con, 2003, I think, now. 2001, I don't remember, 2001 maybe, with NPR. Like, this guy was ahead of his time. He was looking for Latino creators to interview. Like, that was kind of a new thing back in, I guess, 2001. So I was one of the guys he talked to. And, he did the interview, and then he leaves, and okay, that's cool, I did an interview, hopefully somebody hears it. And then one of the people who heard it was this filmmaker, Brian Cox. He heard the interview and was kind of interested in the idea, so he got a hold of me through his assistant. And it was a real long process, like months and months. And then they wanted to buy some of the comics. I sent it to them. And then later on, they tell me, "Oh, Brian would like to have a meeting with you. Like to talk to you. Come down to his office I go, sure, that'd be cool. Obviously, I go, okay, he's a director. So, you know, he picked my brain about it and everything. And we decided, yeah, let's make a movie out of this. So, again, months and months, maybe a year or two, you know, get a lawyer and get the producer involved and all this. But one day in 2005, we're filming at just here in north of LA, the San Fernando Mission, which probably a lot of people have studied in their fourth grade class, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're there in the mission, like in the courtyard. It was like probably, I guess in the morning. I don't remember that first day, and I'm standing there looking at all these people walking around with the cameras and I'm like, man, they're making the movie. Like it's really happening. So, I have a cameo in the film. I asked the director, when he had finished one of the drafts of the script, I go, hey, can I play a small part in there? And he's like, really? You want to? I go, yeah. So, yeah, Stan Lee was doing it at the time, right? Back in 2005 already. So, I was an associate producer on the film. That was all stuff I had me and my lawyer put in the contract. And I worked on the film every day. I mean, what people say, what do you do when you work on the film? Well, when you're the creator, you just hang around. Just show up all day and just watch everybody work and just walk around like, man, this is pretty cool. Like, check out Wilmer in the costume and check out so-and-so actor right here. And yeah, it's very fun. It's like going to film school, but they picked your project for the assignment.
And did you have it like, was there anything that you were like, you know what, I don't like the scene, the way it was shot, or?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I always thought, I think we all wonder about that. Like, okay, you're the creator of this thing. So, I mean, no one really gets, like, creative, like, for the most part, right? Creative control on a project. If they wrote, like, ask Stephen King. Look how many interviews he does, like, oh, God, I hated that film. It was horrible, whatever. You sign the rights away for that. Not all the rights. You give them the rights to make a film or a cartoon, whatever, but you keep the rights to continue making the comics, whatever. But no, I had a good relationship with the director, Brian, who's a writer also. We had a really good relationship. I mean, I think that's probably why I ultimately signed the contract, because I really had trust in him as a collaborator. So he always told me, like, every time he wrote a draft of the script, he would send it to me and the producer just for our opinion. So then you just write down or you email him, whatever, or you go talk to him. Well, like right here, this part here, I'm not sure, or, he always told me, he goes, look, if there's ever anything you don't like, tell me why you don't like it. Don't just say you don't like it, which is true. Don't be a diva or a big jerk. Like, oh, that sucks. Say, hey, I don't think that works because, this happened here and or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, and then the other thing was, it's funny, he told me this guy, I never would have done this. He goes, yeah, if I'm, once we start filming, I got to shut something off here on my computer. He said, once we start filming, if there's something you don't like or you notice, can you just, come up to me and tell me, but, don't announce it. I go, oh God, no way. I wouldn't do that. Like, like you were saying, like, that was a horrible scene. You can't do that. That's just not the way it works, because, the director has to control the whole set. So, but he was always open. He's like, come and tell me on the side. Yeah. And there was one time, I'm not going to tell you what it was, but I'm not going to tell the world what it was, but there was something being filmed and somebody was doing some lines. And then I go up to him, on the side privately, the director, hey, he's like, yeah, I know. We'll fix that later. So,
so yeah, but
he was always open. Like,
yeah.
He was always open.
But you wouldn't pull Stephen King and, go out on an interview and say,
when I sell 80 million novels like Stephen King, maybe I have that right to scream and go to Entertainment Tonight and say this was horrible. But yeah,
for sure, yeah, because he's a legend, right?
Heavyweight, yeah.
So besides Volume 2 of El Muerto, any other upcoming projects that people should keep an eye out?
So I did something recently here in LA for the Department of Mental Health. They're doing an outreach every year. They do an outreach for like the Latino population, because being Latino, I'll admit it, because Latinos were not very good at dealing with mental health or acknowledging it, like, está loquito, or man up or something. Like, oh, there is more to it than just that. There's, so they do some outreach, and every year there's a different project. So last year they made an announcement that we're going to do a comic book. I'm like, oh, perfect. So I got together with a friend of mine. He runs a nonprofit here in LA, like an arts mentorship program, Distal Arts, DSTL. So I go, why don't you apply for it, Louis? Because it's a whole logistical thing. Like, we had to arrange, transportation, and you had to arrange a location. That's beyond what I wanted. I just wanted to teach the class. So he applied for it, the grant. Other people applied. We won it, thankfully. And so he hired me as the instructor for the class. And so we had a bunch of kids, like between, I guess, 16 through 25. Kids, 25 real part doesn't want to be called a kid, but young people. They'd come in for 10 weeks and they'd do a 2-page comic on the mental health topic of whatever they want to do. It's up to them. You pick the one you want to do. It could be something you're going through or something you know about or something you care about. And, so it's going to be published as an anthology, and the county's going to print them up and distribute them throughout the county. So we have a release party in a few weeks. I'll put that on my Instagram. So that's probably the next thing I got.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I did a 2-page comic myself. I did my own little introspective mental health thing. So that's the next thing coming up. And then the preview book, which sometime in the spring, and then the graphic novel end of the year. There may be 1 or 2 things that'll pop up in between. Because I have so many backlog. They're out of print, so sometimes I'll do a new printing of it. I have this comic called Cochito, which I ran out of them last year, but I'll put it out, a new version, a new edition of it. So it's basically a little pig dressed up in a muerto costume. I don't have a picture of it here with me, but
kind of like Spider-Man.
Kind of ripping off. Yeah, kind of. When I saw Spider-Verse, 2 years ago now? I don't know when that was, but
I think so.
I go, hey, what would a muerto pig look like? And I drew it like, oh, you know what? I have an idea for a quick little story.
So where can people follow your work? Do you have I know you, I follow you on Instagram, but I don't know if you have a website or somewhere there you keep
yes. Here we go. I'm all looking for my where's my info? I have it all in the card here. Yeah. So I guess the main thing is you can go to my site, Havzilla.com, JAVZILL, like Godzilla, Havzilla.com. So that's my blog, and on the right-hand side, I got links to the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter. But if they go to Havzilla.com, that's my main landing page, and there's a link to my store on there, so they can order some of these books we talked about and such, or and again, follow me on the social networks, because I'm pretty active on those. I try to keep people up to date, what I'm working on, where I'm going, at what event, whatever. So
yeah, that's where I follow you, and I saw that you whenever you're going to any conventions or whatnot, you pretty much post that information there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Being an independent artist, even if you're working for a company, but you got to get the word out. And man, we're so lucky nowadays that we do have all these, and they're all free, these social networks.
Yeah.
So there's no reason any independent artist, any independent creator, people can't find them or find out about them by having these various, I do Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So that's a blessing that we didn't have back in 1998 when I started doing comics. Yeah. So all you creators out there, take advantage of all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I guess right now the biggest social media platform is Instagram. Would you agree? Yeah.
I hate to make any big announcements about it because then, in 3 years, it'll be some new thing. But no, you're right. Instagram is definitely, I guess, because it's so quick. You just get up. You get on there, post the image, and then Facebook, you get on there and you start reading all these things and get distracted by this or that, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's not as much going on the sides or people post.
Yeah,
and the thing is that I think Facebook has become more like a Craigslist where people just are selling stuff. Like, at least for me, it's like, people selling this and this and this and this.
Really? That's interesting. You get a lot of that in your feeds, huh?
Yeah. And I think it's my fault because I subscribe to these groups where, Imperial Valley Garage or whatnot. But
No. that's the evil stuff about these. What do you call it? What do they call it? Not the logistics, but the logarithms. Yeah. Oh, this guy likes buying and selling. So yeah, you get flooded with that stuff on your thing.
Yeah.
I got a lot of comic book posts from creators, and so yeah, it's kind of scary how much they. Well, that's a whole other topic though. But how these the Skynet thing, this living sentient internet can track you, and it's funny. Like you go to, like I'll look at a book on eBay or Amazon, like, oh, this is neat, and then I go back to, okay, I got to go back here and read this news article, on a website, a serious article, but then you see the little ads. Hey, here's that book.
Yeah, remember you?
Why are you following me? It's like the eBay ad, it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
that's bizarre.
Has it ever happened to you where you say something, like you're having a conversation with somebody and you're like, oh, you know what? I need to go buy some oil or whatever, and then you'll get it on you'll see oil on your phone?
I've heard a lot of people they always mention that to me now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's happened to me, but I know people have said, oh, you know what? I was talking to, my mom the other day about cornflakes, and that's kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
So you're listening.
Yeah. I mean,
you guys are listening.
I mean, it's obvious that they're listening, but it's just like, yeah, you don't put two and two, and when it does happen to you, because it's happened to me a couple of times, and I'm like, oh crap, that's scary. But
no, right, that's exactly what I was talking about. This thing, and there it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Buy me. I know.
It's scary. So is there anything else that you would like to talk about that I didn't touch? In this.
I'm gonna buy into that though. I'm gonna get some developer people to, like, whenever people mention muertos or Latino superhero, whatever, it's like El Muerto comic. Hey, everyone else is doing it.
Yeah, why not, huh?
Why not? No, I mean, like I said, it's going to be great to go down to Calexico. I don't know if I've ever been there. I have to ask my parents. Because we used to go to Mexicali because my dad was there. So I remember we used to go to Mexicali when we were younger. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to ask them, hey, I assume we probably went through Calexico. Anyway, I'm looking forward to going back down there because I have not been in that area in a real long time. So you got to shoot me an email or something. Let me know the good places to eat.
Oh, there's a lot. Right? But yeah.
The locals always know the good. I don't want that chain crap. I want some good mom. Yeah.
There's a lot of mom and pop shops here that I know you'll enjoy. And plus, you're coming in the good weather because normally it's like 100 and something degrees, and it'll probably be like, I think 80 degrees is the forecast for Saturday.
So it's really hot. Okay, I guess I haven't been there forever.
Yeah, during the summer, it could get up to 120 maybe on a bad day.
Man. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Even for like someone from LA, you know what, 120, that's way too much.
Yeah. I mean, I think the highest that I've experienced is like 120 something. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, you're coming like during the good weather because it's right here. It's either like super hot or it's like that dry cold that hurts.
Okay.
We had today's getting a little bit warmer, but yesterday was like, it was like 50, but it's that cold that, the wind hurts like when it hits your skin. So. Oh,
yeah.
So we have those two extremes, but you came in that, you're going to have a good day here.
That little pocket. Well, thank you, Ruben, for doing it in February. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
What's the scene down there as far as, pop culture and comics and all that from your point of view? Just me interviewing.
I think that, being somebody that, my podcast isn't like, I for a while I had a podcast where it was me and my friend and we would talk about pop culture stuff, mainly comics, video games, cartoons, toys and stuff like that. This is more, local events and stuff like that. This new podcast that I'm doing right now. But being somebody that's into like pop culture, that's into like toys and comics and cartoons and stuff like that. I feel that there's a big, since we have Mexicali, there's like 1 million people across the border. They take advantage of events like this. They'll come and, they know that people from the outside are going to come in and bring, their art and stuff like that. So you'll get a lot of people from down south coming down to El Centro because the event is going to be in El Centro. I live in Calexico, but the event is in El Centro.
Okay.
But yeah, I think you'll get, there's a big crowd here in the valley, but Mexicali will bring a lot of people down and walk around and see, talk to the people there. But yeah, I think there's a good good chunk of people that are into comics, that are into pop culture, that
Right.
like this kind of stuff. There are a couple of cosplayers here and there. So yeah, I think it'll be a good turnout. I think people are gonna. I don't know if in the past they've had someone like you that's Hispanic, that is focused on doing comics that are based on Hispanic culture. So I think that'll be something new. I'm thinking it's gonna be something new, something that they'll enjoy.
Yeah. It's always interesting for me to meet Mexican readers from Mexico, just fans, whatever, because it's like I'm doing a lot of stuff based on their culture, like their ancient mythology, but it's from the point of view of being a Mexican American. So that's always kind of interesting to see that.
Yeah.
In fact, I was on a panel one time in Dallas last year, Texas, or 2 years ago, and there was three of us. There was a couple of us on the panel. We were Mexican American, and there was this one artist. She was from Mexico. And me and this other guy were talking about our comics, and we were doing a lot of stuff with the mythology and stuff. And but it was she made a comment. She was like, well, that's kind of interesting how you guys were born here, raised Americans, even though you're Mexican background. How interested you are in like the Aztec mythology. She's on because she was doing like fantasy art, but it wasn't based on Mexico. It was just kind of like, I don't want to mischaracterize it. Lord of the Rings type, just fantasy. She was interested. She's not interested in that. Me and him were really interested in, the culture down south. Whereas in Mexico, maybe I see more and more of that comics now. I see a lot of younger artists from Mexico doing like Aztec Mayan stories. In fact, some of them are even drawn in the anime style.
Oh, okay.
Which I watched a trip seeing like Aztec or Mayan characters and gods with the anime style. I mean, I love that though. It just shows like those kids, they grew up with anime. Like you're talking about Dragon Ball Z and whatever we grew up with, Pokemon or Speed Racer in my case. So yeah, it's just interesting to see how culture or pop culture, whatever you want to call it, how it just gets shared, influenced, reinterpreted, and kind of melded together in this new thing. So
yeah, and it's it's funny that she wasn't into like the Mexican culture. She was drawing something else, and I think it's something that I think being somebody that lives in the border and I when I grew up, I used to go to Mexicali a lot. Most of my family is there, and it's not something that is talked about a lot. I think I've heard it more. Like I've learned more from the Aztecs and stuff like that from the Chicano people that I talk to that are Mexican Americans than I do from my cousins or people that I've dealt in Mexicali.
Right.
I think it's maybe more down south. Maybe there's more people that are into that are still trying to keep that culture alive. But here in the border, it's like it's not that common to hear. I think they're more into cultural figures like Miguel Hidalgo or Pancho Villa, but not like Aztec roots and stuff like that.
It's interesting, how that works.
Yeah, but
I'm glad to be part of it.
I think now that you mention it, it would be fun to see a comic and like an anime comic, but with dealing with Aztecs and all these gods and stuff like that. That's a good idea to maybe somebody's already doing it. Maybe like if somebody is, let me know so I can see it.
Yeah, I'll send you a link or two. There's at least one that I'm aware of. But yeah, it's a growing little subgenre, I guess, or a burgeoning thing.
Yeah. So, anything else that you would like to add before we end our conversation?
Just one last little teaser for the next book, The Casa del Diablo. So it starts off where Diego El Muerto, he's driving from across from Mexicali to Tijuana, so he's going through La Rumorosa.
Yeah.
I always wanted to go through there. I don't know if is it a haunted highway? There's always stories about it. But,
well, there's two roads. One that's
right.
like more safer, but the one that's the old road is really dangerous. So there's a lot of accidents. I mean, I don't know. There might be some stories about operations or hauntings or whatever, but I mean, there's been a lot of accidents, a lot of deaths in that road. So I wouldn't be surprised if if there isn't anything there.
Well, my story takes place on there, and there's this woman. Her child gets kidnapped from Mexicali, her baby, newborn, and she's on the road across La Rumorosa to find. She heard something that there's some crazy woman who's kidnapped children for decades, but the police can never find the house. They've searched, the army has searched, but her and Diego, they team up and they go up this one mountain of madness, and there's this giant haunted Spanish hacienda on top of one of the mountains that no one has ever seen, and that's where they got to go find the baby. So there's a little preview for your audience there.
Awesome. Well, it's really cool that you're incorporating, things that we can relate to. So I think that it'll be a hit. And once people get to know that, that comic is gonna that graphic novel is gonna have, this highway that we all grew up knowing and might have a hidden story. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
and then the third book, the one after, he ends up in Tijuana because he's trying to find a curandero to help him with his this curse he has. So anyway, I'll have to keep going through Imperial Valley and the rest of the border area in the next 2 years and just really go, hey, check out these graphic novels here. It's kind of based right here along your stretch of the border.
Yeah.
So.
And do you have any plans of maybe translating it?
Yeah, no, I gotta have a date yet, like the plan. But no, the thought, yes, I have to translate these books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be a good way to reach out to our neighbors who are across the border.
Right. No, definitely. Yeah, something that's definitely it's on the agenda. I just haven't figured out who's going to do it, and got to pay the person because translation is it's a legitimate skill. So you want it done right. But no, thanks for mentioning that. But we're going to have El Muerto in Espanol for sure one of these days.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Javier, we've been at it for like an hour now.
Wow, the time always these podcasts it just like disappears in an hour. That's amazing.
Yeah, people always tell me like, "Oh, I don't know what to say." I'm like, "Dude, don't worry about it." I know you have stories for days, and you're gonna be good. So like, I mean, time flies when especially when you're talking about stuff that you enjoy and when it's like your passion. You can talk for days and you wouldn't even notice it. But thank you so much for taking this time and being on the podcast. Hopefully I'll be down at the Imperial Valley Comic Con and maybe meeting you in person.
That'd be great.
But shout out once again to Ruben Nájera for putting this on. Shout out to all the artists that are going to be there, the cosplayers, the vendors, everybody that's going to be part of this event. Imperial Valley and Mexicali. Make sure to save the date. It's Saturday, February 15th. It's going to be at the Martin Luther King Pavilion in El Centro.
Yes, yeah.
You know the times from what time to what time?
I want to say 10 is 7, but they can look it up.
Yeah, make sure to follow Imperial Valley Comic Con on Instagram. Or metahumans.com, their website. That's Ruben's website. And make sure to follow Javier. What's your Instagram and all your social media?
Yeah, the Instagram is Javier Los Comics. JAVIER LOSCOMEX.
And then your website?
Havzilla.com.
Okay. And I'll put links of all of this on the description of the podcast, and also whenever I post it in social media, I'll put links to all that. Javier, thank you once again for taking this time. I really appreciate it. I got to learn a lot from your art and your books, and I'll definitely keep an eye out And yeah, I'll sure to once we have volume 2 with La Rumorosa in there, I'll make sure to let everybody know so that they can keep an eye out and go out and buy it. So yeah, thank you guys. Man.
Thank you, Jose.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for taking the time. And thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.